There's a type of place that shows up on every best affordable cities list. Low rent, low crime stats, quiet streets. And 6 months after people move there, they start planning their exit. Not because of what they expected, taxes, weather, politics. Because of what wasn't listed, what wasn't measured, what the rankings don't count. By the end of this, you'll understand why a place can be cheap, safe, and still unlivable. And why the people leaving don't complain loudly. They just leave. Over the last decade, migration patterns in the U.S. have split into two streams. One moves toward opportunity. The other moves toward affordability. But affordability without infrastructure creates a different kind of problem. As younger populations cluster in metro cores and coastal zones, older populations settle into lower-cost regions. That sounds balanced. It isn't. Because the services people rely on, hospitals, specialists, emergency response, basic utilities, don't scale down gracefully. They disappear in chunks. What you're about to see isn't a warning. It's a pattern. 12 cities that look functional on paper, but operate under quiet strain in practice. The kind of strain that doesn't make headlines, but reshapes daily life. The first one tricks almost everyone. Because it has what most affordable places don't: water, sun, and a postcard view. Lake Havasu City, Arizona. People move here for cheap desert living and water access. What they find is distance. Rent for a 2-bedroom sits around $1,200 to $1,400. Reasonable if you're retired and debt-free. The problem isn't cost. It's proximity. The nearest Level 1 trauma center is 60 miles south in Kingman or 200 miles west in Las Vegas. If something goes wrong at night or on a weekend, that distance isn't theoretical. The population skews heavily retiree. The infrastructure was built for a smaller, seasonal crowd. Now it's year-round, aging, and medically dependent. Restaurants close early. Shops cycle through ownership. Streets are clean, but empty. There's a woman who runs a small bookstore on McCulloch Boulevard. She opens 3 days a week now. Not because of demand, because she can't staff it. Does isolation feel like peace to you, or like waiting? But here's what's strange. The next city has the opposite problem. It's not isolated at all. It's crowded, coastal, and still failing in the exact same way. Fort Myers, Florida. This one tricks people. It's coastal. It's sunny. Rent for older units runs $1,400 to $1,700, which sounds doable compared to Miami or Tampa. But the infrastructure is buckling. Traffic has tripled in 15 years. The healthcare system, already strained, now operates under permanent triage during snowbird season. Emergency room wait times stretch into hours. Specialist appointments can take months. If you're managing a chronic condition, this matters. And then there's the weather. Not the heat. People expect that. The hurricanes. Fort Myers has been hit hard, repeatedly. Insurance costs have spiked. Rebuilding is slow. The recovery cycle never finishes before the next storm season starts. A neighbor evacuates, comes back, repairs the fence, and starts budgeting for the next evacuation. This becomes the rhythm. Is low cost worth high uncertainty? Now, if you're thinking hurricanes are the problem, the next place proves otherwise. No storms, no floods, just mountains, clean air, and a quiet economic collapse no one talks about. Pueblo, Colorado. Pueblo gets described as affordable Colorado, and it is. Rent averages $900 to $1,100 for a decent place. You're an hour from Colorado Springs, 2.5 from Denver. Mountains in sight. Numbers look good, but Pueblo's economy never diversified after steel declined. The tax base is thin. Public services reflect that. The school system struggles. Parks aren't maintained consistently. Road repairs lag. The population is aging and stagnant. Younger people leave for metro areas. What remains is a town that functions, barely, but doesn't grow. Grocery options are limited. Retail is sparse. Healthcare is workable for routine care, but specialists often require a drive. At 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, downtown feels like a Sunday morning. It's not charm. It's emptiness. Do you need activity nearby, or just lower rent? Which brings us to a city everyone's heard of, but for the worst possible reason. And that reason still hasn't been fixed. Flint, Michigan. Everyone knows the water crisis. Fewer people know it's still not fully resolved. Rent here is extraordinarily low, $600 to $800 for a full house in some areas. That's not a deal. It's a signal. The infrastructure damage goes beyond pipes. It's institutional. Trust in local government collapsed. Population has been declining for decades. Services that depend on density, transit, healthcare networks, retail, have thinned to near absence. If you're young and healthy, you might manage. If you're older, are managing health issues, or need reliable systems, Flint doesn't offer them. There's a church on the north side that used to serve lunch twice a week. Now it's once a week, not because of funding, because there aren't enough volunteers left. Is rock bottom rent worth systemic uncertainty? The next city won't feel like Flint at all. It's southern, coastal, and still sells itself as charming. But the charm ran out about a decade ago. Mobile, Alabama. Mobile sells itself on Gulf access and southern affordability. Rent runs $1,000 to $1,300. Cost of living is genuinely low. But the city operates on a degraded version of itself. The hospital system has contracted. Entire specialties are understaffed or absent. If you need a cardiologist or neurologist, you may be referred to Pensacola or Birmingham. The roads flood with moderate rain. Internet service outside the core is inconsistent. The population is aging, income levels are low, and the local economy depends heavily on the port and a shrinking industrial base. There's no backup plan. On paper, it works. In practice, you're managing around gaps daily. Does waterfront proximity outweigh service gaps? Now here's where the pattern starts to sharpen. Because the next place isn't struggling with economy or infrastructure. It's struggling with geography itself. To be clear, some smaller cities are stable. They exist, but they share very specific traits. A strong regional hospital, diversified tax base, local leadership that maintained infrastructure through lean years, and proximity to a metro anchor within 30 minutes. Those places aren't on this list. These 12 are. And the sixth one might be the most extreme example yet. Yuma, Arizona. Yuma sits on the California-Arizona border, agriculture-heavy, and scorching. Rent is affordable, ranging from $850 to $1,100 up to your comfort range. The problem is extremity. Summer temperatures regularly exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit for months. This isn't discomfort. It's a health risk for anyone over 60 or with cardiovascular issues. The healthcare system is small and underfunded. Specialists are rare. If something serious happens, you're evacuated to Phoenix, 180 miles east. The local economy revolves around seasonal farm work. The population fluctuates. Nothing feels permanent. Businesses open and close within a year. There's a Walgreens, a Walmart, and a lot of empty storefronts. You can live here cheaply, but you'll feel the edges of the map. Does extreme climate fit your risk tolerance, or just your budget? If Yuma's problem is heat, the next city's problem is something colder, not weather. Abandonment. Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Pine Bluff is among the most affordable places in the U.S. Rent for a house can run as low as $500. That's not affordability. That's abandonment pricing. The population has been declining for 50 years. The economy hollowed out. Crime rates are high. The school system is troubled. Healthcare is minimal. The infrastructure isn't broken. It's just old and unrepaired. You can buy a house outright for the cost of a used car. But there's no job market, no services, and no plan for reversal. People who stay do so because they can't leave, not because it works. There's a main street with 6 blocks of empty buildings. Not boarded up, just empty. Lights off, doors locked. Is owning property worth living in a place that stopped functioning? The 8th city is different. It's not in the South or the desert. It's in New Jersey. And that alone tells you something went very wrong. Vineland, New Jersey. Vineland sits in South Jersey, away from the shore, away from Philly. Rent is moderate, $1,100 to $1,400. But the town is economically stagnant. The agricultural base declined. Retail clusters are limited. The population is aging. Healthcare is a problem. The local hospital system is small. Specialized care often requires trips to Cherry Hill or Atlantic City. Roads are rough. Public transit barely exists. If you don't drive, you're isolated. It's quiet, but that quietness isn't peace. It's demographic thinning. Younger families leave. Older residents age in place. Schools consolidate. Nothing collapses. It just fades. A diner on Landis Avenue used to be open 7 days. Now it's 5. The owner isn't cutting costs. She's cutting hours because there's no one to serve. Does stability require growth, or just survival? Next is a city that still has an economy. A strong one, actually. But you can smell the trade-off from miles away. Beaumont, Texas. Beaumont is refinery country. Rent runs $900 to $1,200. Cost of living is low. But the city operates in a permanent haze, literal and economic. The air quality is poor. The economy is tied almost entirely to petrochemical industries, which makes it vulnerable to energy market swings. Healthcare is adequate for basic needs, but thin on specialists. The population is stable, but not growing. What people don't expect is how industrial the landscape feels. This isn't suburban Texas. It's functional, industrial, and slightly worn down. If that doesn't bother you, it works. If it does, it won't. Is affordability worth environmental trade-offs you can't control? The 10th place used to be beautiful, historic, even. But beauty doesn't pay the bills. And this city hasn't paid them in decades. Wheeling, West Virginia. Wheeling was once a manufacturing hub. Now it's a case study in graceful decline. Rent is absurdly low, $650 to $900. The Ohio River runs through it. Historic buildings still stand, but the economy never recovered. The population has been shrinking for decades. The healthcare system is small. Jobs are scarce. Younger people leave immediately after high school. What remains is an aging population managing on fixed incomes in a town that can't afford to maintain itself. Roads crack. Streetlights stay dark. Buildings decay slowly. It's not dangerous. It's just unlived in. There's a park along the river with benches facing the water. In the evening, no one's there. Is low rent worth demographic emptiness? Now, if Wheeling declines slowly, the next city would do something worse. It swings wildly, and that's worse than a steady decline. Odessa, Texas. Odessa lives and dies by oil prices. When oil booms, Odessa booms. When it busts, everything contracts. Rent fluctuates wildly, $1,000 to $1,600 depending on the cycle. Right now, it's mid-range. But the volatility is the problem. Healthcare is inconsistent. Schools are underfunded. Infrastructure repairs lag. The population is transient. Workers come for jobs, leave when the work dries up. Nothing feels stable. If you're tied to the oil industry and understand the risk, it might work. If you're looking for long-term stability, this isn't it. Does boom and bust fit your planning horizon, or does it just sound cheap? And that brings us to the last one, the most extreme, the one that isn't declining or thinning or struggling. It's already gone. Gary, Indiana. Gary is the clearest example of infrastructure collapse. Rent is nearly free, $400 to $600 for entire homes. But the city has lost 60% of its population since 1960. Entire neighborhoods are abandoned. The tax base evaporated. Public services exist in name only. There is no hospital. The nearest ER is in Hammond or Merrillville. Crime is high. Schools are failing. Roads are cratered. The water system is aging. This is not a place that functions for normal life. You can live here, but you'll be managing around absence daily. A block of row houses, windows intact, grass overgrown, no cars in the driveways. Not condemned, just empty. Is extreme low cost ever worth systemic failure? None of these places collapsed overnight. They thinned, and thinning is harder to see than collapse. Services don't disappear, they degrade. Hospitals don't close. They reduce hours, lose specialists, and stop taking certain insurance. Shops don't shutter. They just stop reopening after the owner retires. People leave quietly. They don't post about it. They don't make announcements. They just stop renewing the lease. And the people who stay aren't choosing to stay. They're choosing not to leave. There's a difference. The 12 cities on this list aren't bad places. They're places where the trade-offs became too steep, where affordability stopped being a feature and started being a warning sign. This isn't about where to move. It's about knowing what you're trading. Rent is one variable. Access is another. Stability is a third. Most of these places give you one. Very few give you two. None gives you all three. Which trade-off would you accept, and which would you never?